told you it was a conspiracy, but the real story is worse. What secrets died with Epstein on his cursed island? Imagine cameras in every bedroom, billionaires in black masks, and a submarine vanishing with proof you weren't supposed to see. Your favorite leaders partied here. Your darkest heroes signed the guest logs. And the screams they silenced? They're still echoing. Chapter 1. Paradise of Secrets. Beneath the Caribbean sun, the waters surrounding Little St. James shimmer an impossible turquoise, lapping at powdery white sands that mask a labyrinth of horrors. This 70-acre private island, purchased by Jeffrey Epstein in 1998 for $7.95 million, is a paradox, a tropical Eden veiling a nightmare etched into its very soil. Locals once called it Little St. James, a name now buried under infamy, whispered only in connection to the disgraced financier. Yet long before Epstein's reign, the island bore darker legends. Ancient indigenous burial grounds, colonial-era curses, and a history steeped in bloodshed. Little St. James lies in the U.S. Virgin Islands, a short boat ride from St. Thomas. Its original name, Little St. James, hints at a past entangled with European colonization. The island's early history remains murky, but oral traditions passed down by locals speak of the Arawak and Taino peoples, indigenous communities believed to have inhabited the region before being decimated by disease and violence. Some fishermen still avoid its shores, citing rumors of restless spirits. The land is jumbied, one St. Thomas resident told the Daily News in 2019, using the Caribbean term for haunted. Bad things happen there. Bad things still do. In the 18th century, the island became a sugarcane plantation, its soil worked by enslaved Africans. Rusted shackles and bone fragments unearthed by construction crews in the 2000s hinted at unmarked graves. Every shovel hit something terrible, a contractor later confessed to the Miami Herald, describing how Epstein's team swiftly sealed off excavation sites. By the time Epstein acquired the island, its legacy of exploitation had already been written, a pattern he would grotesquely expand. To the untrained eye, Little St. James resembles a billionaire's fantasy. A pink limestone mansion crowns the island, flanked by palm trees and infinity pools. But leaked Google Earth images and investigative reports reveal a jarring contrast. A 4,000-square-foot concrete compound dubbed the Temple, its golden dome gleaming ominously. Surveillance cameras, motion sensors, and armed guards patrolled the perimeter, while a dock bristled with security checkpoints. Nothing about that place felt right, recalled a former St. Thomas boat captain in a 2020 Vanity Fair expose. The staff wore earpieces. You'd see girls in bathing suits, but their eyes were empty. The temple's architecture fueled speculation. Topped with a rooftop deck and adorned with a Medusa-like statue, its interior allegedly housed a life-size nude doll and walls lined with erotic art, according to the New York Post. Former workers described windowless rooms with locks on the outside and soundproofing so dense you could scream and no one would hear. Yet Epstein's most chilling addition lay underground, a network of tunnels connecting the temple to guest villas, their purpose never fully explained. Among the island's many secrets, none unsettle more than the testimonies of those who worked there. Maria, name changed, a housekeeper employed from 2001 to 2005, broke her non-disclosure agreement in 2019, recounting to federal investigators a world of enforced silence. "We were told to never look guests in the eye," she said, her statement later cited in court documents. "But at night, you'd hear things, screams, begging. Once, I found a girl hiding in a closet, shaking. They took her away before sunrise." Maria's account aligns with others. In a 2021 interview with CNN, a landscaper described finding torn clothing and ropes in the jungle. "I asked the manager, and he just handed me an envelope full of cash," he said. "After that, I kept my head down." Even Epstein's arrest in 2019 did little to unmask the island's truths. Days before the FBI raided Little St. James, bulldozers were spotted demolishing structures. By the time agents arrived, entire buildings, including the temple's suspicious basement, had been reduced to rubble. Today, Little St. James stands abandoned, its ruins guarded by a skeleton crew. Sold in 2023 to the mysterious LLC, Little St. James Ventures. Its new owners have barred journalists and locals alike. Yet urban explorers who sneaked onto the island in 2022 reported eerie findings. Fresh roses on Epstein's unmarked grave, security cameras still humming, and the faint sound of sobbing in the wind. As the sun sets over the Caribbean, the island's shadows lengthen, its secrets festering beneath the sand. What rituals transpired in the temple? Who prowled its tunnels? And whose voices still echo in the night? The answers may lie buried, like the bones of the past, waiting to claw their way into the light. Behind the velvet ropes of Epstein's Billionaires Playground, a sinister guest list emerges. Flight logs reveal heads of state, tech titans, and Hollywood royalty, all drawn to an island where morality drowned in the sea. But what price did they pay to enter? And what horrors did they leave behind? Chapter 2: The Billionaires Playground. Beneath the veneer of swaying palm trees and infinity pools, Jeffrey Epstein's Little St. James was not merely an island. It was a kingdom of impunity, a gilded cage where the world's most powerful men indulged in darkness. Here, billionaires, princes, and presidents mingled with scientists and spies, their sins buried under layers of cash and coercion. Let's see how Epstein, a college dropout turned financial enigma, built an empire of exploitation, and why his island became the ultimate VIP playground for those who believe themselves above the law. Jeffrey Epstein's rise from a middling math teacher to a billionaire financier remains shrouded in mystery, a puzzle even the FBI struggled to solve. After a brief stint at Bear Stearns in the 1970s, Epstein vanished into the shadows, resurfacing in the 1980s with inexplicable wealth. Federal prosecutors later alleged his fortune stemmed from blackmail finance, a web of secrets harvested from the elite. By the 1990s, he had cultivated a roster of clients and friends that read like a geopolitical who's who: powerful politicians, Senators Prince Andrew, physicist Stephen Hawking, and CIA-linked hedge fund titan Glenn Dubin. But Epstein's true currency was leverage. He funded cutting-edge research at Harvard and the Santa Fe Institute, not out of altruism, but to infiltrate intellectual circles. He wanted to seed the human race with his DNA. Former associate Stephen Hoffenberg told the New York Times, referencing Epstein's obsession with eugenics. This grandiose vision bled into his island, which he transformed into a twisted salon, a place where intellectuals debated artificial intelligence by day, while underage masseuses were trafficked to guests by night. The island's allure lay in its exclusivity and its secrecy. To reach Little St. James, guests boarded Epstein's fleet of private jets, infamously dubbed the Lolita Express. Flight logs subpoenaed in 2009 and later unsealed in Maxwell's 2021 trial revealed a parade of bold-faced names. Actor Kevin Spacey, former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, and billionaire Leslie Wexner, whose Victoria's Secret empire allegedly supplied Epstein with models. Some passengers wore disguises. Men in black hats, women in wigs, a former pilot told Vanity Fair. They'd laugh about it like it was a game. But the game had rules. Visitors surrendered phones at the dock, per staff accounts. Security footage later destroyed reportedly showed politicians and CEOs escorted to the temple, its gold-domed roof hiding soundproofed rooms. In a 2016 deposition, victim Maria Farmer described Epstein's directive to staff: make them feel like kings, then make sure they owe us. What transpired behind closed doors defied morality. In sworn testimony, survivor Virginia Giuffre recounted being forced to entertain Prince Andrew at 17, a claim the Duke of York denied but settled out of court for millions. Epstein's Rolodex was his shield. As former FBI agent Brad Garrett noted, he collected people. If you crossed him, he'd ruin you. While guests reveled, a parallel nightmare unfolded for the staff. Armed guards from Epstein's private security firm, Southern Trust, patrolled the island with assault rifles, their salaries paid through offshore accounts. They'd follow the girls everywhere, recalled Chauncey Davies, a former masseuse, in a 2020 Daily Beast interview. If you tried to leave, they'd remind you about the NDA. And the penalties. Those NDAs, laced with threats of financial ruin, silenced cooks, cleaners, and pilots. But the most trapped were Epstein's masseuses, teenage girls recruited from Eastern Europe, Latin America, and foster homes, their passports confiscated upon arrival. Chef testimonies from the 2008 Florida case revealed chilling details. Champagne laced with benzodiazepines, platters of cocaine-shaped chocolates. They wanted the girls compliant, one chef told prosecutors, or willing to fight depending on the guest. In July 2019, as FBI agents raided Epstein's Manhattan mansion, a deleted email chain surfaced in a sealed court filing. Sent from a cryptic address, it contained a single line: delivery en route. 3 packages from Belarus. ETA 0200. Dispose after use. Prosecutors alleged packages referred to trafficked women, a claim bolstered by flight records showing Epstein's jet departing Minsk weeks earlier. The email vanished from servers within hours, its author never identified. But its implication was clear. The island's horrors stretched far beyond the Caribbean, into a labyrinth of global complicity. As the storm of Epstein's arrest loomed, survivors risked everything to expose the truth. But beneath the island's temple, a vault of tapes lay hidden, recordings that could topple empires. Who were the faces in those videos? And why did the FBI never find them? Chapter 3: Voices in the Darkness. The moonlit waters surrounding Little St. James Island shimmered like liquid obsidian, concealing the horrors that unfolded on its shores. For the young women lured to this tropical purgatory, the promise of a brighter future swiftly dissolved into a nightmare of unspeakable cruelty. Their voices, long silenced by fear and coercion, now pierced the darkness, a chorus of truth demanding to be heard. In 2001, a 16-year-old girl from Florida named Maria, a pseudonym, received a life-changing offer. A charismatic recruiter approached her at a shopping mall, promising a lucrative modeling career and scholarships. They said I'd meet influential people, Maria recounted in a 2021 federal affidavit. But when I got to the island, there were no cameras. Just him. Maria's story mirrors dozens of others. Virginia Jeffrey, perhaps the most prominent survivor, was 17 when Ghislaine Maxwell escorted her to Epstein's New Mexico ranch before trafficking her to Little St. James. I was told I'd be giving massages to wealthy men, Jeffrey testified in 2021. Instead, I was passed around like a toy. Her sworn accounts detail encounters with Prince Andrew, billionaire Glenn Dubin, and former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, all of whom denied her allegations. Annie Farmer, another survivor, described being lured under the guise of a spa retreat in 1996. Epstein insisted on giving me a massage himself, she told the New York Times in 2019. When I refused, he flew into a rage. I realized then I couldn't leave. Once on the island, victims were ensnared in a meticulously crafted prison. Passports were confiscated under the pretense of safekeeping, while surveillance cameras, hidden in palm trees and behind mirrors, tracked every move. Former staffer Juan Alessi, in a 2009 deposition, described Epstein's command: watch the girls always. Escape attempts were met with brutal consequences. In 2005, a 15-year-old girl, identified in court documents as Jane Doe 102, tried to flee via a midnight swim towards St. Thomas. Patrol boats intercepted her within minutes. They dragged her back, screaming, recalled a chef in a sealed 2008 testimony. Epstein fined the guards $1,000 for lax security and locked her in a villa for days. Psychological manipulation deepened the trap. Victims were isolated, their families threatened. They said my little sister would be next if I talked, Maria revealed. At the heart of the island loomed Epstein's enigmatic temple, its golden dome glowing like a malevolent eye. Survivors described late-night gatherings where power brokers donned silk robes and masks. Men I'd seen on TV laughed while girls served them champagne, said Sarah Ransom, a survivor who escaped in 2007, in her memoir Silenced No More. The walls had weird symbols, eyes, pyramids. It felt demonic. Strange rituals unfolded in windowless chambers. Jeffrey recalled being ordered to undress and entertain guests, while Ransom described a room adorned with taxidermied animals and a podium where Epstein allegedly orchestrated fantasies. He'd asked powerful men what they desired, Ransom wrote. Then he'd provide it. The temple's basement, later razed by bulldozers, reportedly housed a vault. Forensic experts in 2019 found remnants of recording equipment, fueling speculation that Epstein filmed encounters for blackmail. Those tapes could have destroyed presidencies, a former FBI agent told Vanity Fair. Among the most harrowing accounts is that of Lena, a survivor who testified in Maxwell's trial. In 2004, the then 16-year-old Russian orphan was promised a scholarship, but instead forced into massages. One night, after overhearing guards discuss her impending sale to a European politician, she fled. I ran through the jungle, cutting my feet on rocks, Lena recounted. I dove into the ocean, praying the current would carry me. For 40 minutes, she swam through shark-infested waters, only to spot patrol boats closing in. Searchlights blinded her as guards screamed, "Get the bitch!" Dragged back, Lena was locked in a steel-lined room for a week. Epstein visited me, she said. He whispered, "Now you know there's no hope." Years later, survivors report eerie reminders of their captivity. Maria claims she still receives cryptic emails. "We miss you on the island." In 2022, urban explorers trespassing on Little St. James found fresh roses on Epstein's grave and a message scrawled on the temple's ruins. Silence survives. As the FBI's investigation stalls, questions linger. Who funded the island's demolition? Where are the missing tapes? And whose voices remain trapped in the darkness? Deep beneath the temple's rubble, a labyrinth of tunnels hides Epstein's darkest secret, a vault lined with hard drives. What footage did they hold? And why did a shadowy figure in a black helicopter land on the island hours before the FBI arrived? Chapter 4. Tunnels, Temples, and Technology. Beneath the sun-bleached facade of Little St. James, a labyrinth of horrors lurked. A high-tech underworld engineered to erase screams, surveil every footstep, and bury secrets in steel-lined vaults. Let's look into the island's hidden architecture, a chilling fusion of ancient brutality and cutting-edge control, where Epstein's megalomania merged with the darkest edges of human innovation. Little St. James was not just an island, but a fortress, its true menace concealed below ground. Contractors who built Epstein's compound later described a network of tunnels snaking beneath the surface, connecting guest villas to the temple and a private dock. The tunnels were narrow, like catacombs. One worker told the Miami Herald in 2019, speaking anonymously for fear of retaliation. They had motion sensors every 10 feet. Even the rats couldn't hide. At the heart of this maze lay soundproof chambers, their walls lined with acoustic foam and reinforced steel. In a 2021 deposition, Juan Alessi, Epstein's longtime house manager, recalled a room nicknamed the Dollhouse, where young women were allegedly instructed to act out scenarios for guests. Federal agents who raided the island in 2019 found remnants of these spaces, doors with locks on the outside and floors stained with what forensic teams later identified as sedatives. But the most cryptic structure was a vault buried 20 feet beneath the temple, accessible only via retinal scan. Epstein bragged it was nuke-proof, testified former pilot Larry Visosky during Ghislaine Maxwell's trial. The vault's contents? Thousands of hard drives, later wiped clean in a suspected inside job hours before the FBI's raid. Rising from the island's center like a cursed monument, Epstein's gold-domed temple fueled global speculation. Architectural plans leaked to the New York Times in 2020 revealed a structure designed for secrecy. Windowless rooms, a rooftop observatory, and a basement chamber ringed with copper wiring to block electromagnetic signals. This wasn't a home. It was a panic room for the apocalypse, said former FBI cyber expert Jake Williams. Survivors described rituals steeped in dread. Virginia Jeffrey testified that Epstein demanded she don a red robe and serve guests in the temple's inner sanctum, where walls bore murals of celestial orbs and occult symbols. There was a statue of a winged woman holding a sword, she recounted. He said it was his guardian. Theories about the temple's purpose range from the grotesque to the geopolitical. Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Judith Lewis Herman suggested in Vanity Fair that the rituals served to bond powerful men through shared transgression. Others, like former Mossad agent Ari Ben-Menash, claimed Epstein used the temple to film blackmail material for intelligence agencies. Those tapes were his insurance policy, Ben-Menash told The Guardian. Epstein's island operated like a dystopian tech hub. Infrared drones patrolled the coastline, relaying footage to a command center staffed by ex-Mossad and CIA contractors. If a boat came within a mile, alarms would blare, revealed a security guard in a 2020 Daily Beast interview. We had orders to sink trespassers. Inside the mansion, every corridor bristled with hidden cameras. Data harvested from these devices streamed to encrypted servers in a panic room, guarded by a biometric lock. Forensic analysts discovered the servers in 2019, charred but intact, along with a stack of burner phones labeled with country codes. Saudi Arabia, Russia, Israel. This wasn't just a sex ring. It was an espionage operation, said former NSA technician William Binney. Yet Epstein's most insidious tool was psychological. Survivors reported being forced to recite scripts during massages, their voices recorded for unknown purposes. He'd say, "Admit you love this," recalled Sarah Ransom in her memoir. I later realized he was creating alibis. In 2015, a contractor hired to repair the temple's plumbing stumbled upon a locked steel door behind a false wall. Using a crowbar, he pried it open and froze. The room, lined with soundproofing, contained shackles bolted to the floor and murals of hooded figures circling a fire. There were names carved into the walls, he told the New York Post in 2021, declining to reveal specifics. Dates too. Some went back to the 90s. Photographs he smuggled out showed symbols resembling those in Epstein's Manhattan townhouse, where investigators found a tapestry of Medusa and a shelf of books on mind control. The contractor fled the island the next day, wiring a message to his wife. "If I don't call by dawn, assume the worst." Hours before the FBI raided Little St. James in 2019, a black helicopter landed near the temple. Witnesses reported men in tactical gear loading crates onto the aircraft. By the time agents arrived, the vault's hard drives had been wiped, and the helicopter's tail number traced to a shell corporation in Luxembourg, a dead end. Yet in 2022, a hacker collective leaked fragments of an encrypted file labeled Epstein Island 001.rar. Among the recovered data, a 3-second audio clip of a man laughing and a blurred image of a masked figure in the temple. The voice was identified by AI analysis as that of a now-deceased world leader. As the FBI closed in, a cabal of billionaires scrambled to erase their tracks. But one whistleblower held the key, a ledger naming every guest who visited the island. When he vanished mid-interview, his final words haunted investigators. "They're in the walls. They're always listening." Chapter 5. The Cover-Up. The island of Little St. James did not operate in isolation. Its horrors thrived under a vast, interconnected shield of corruption, a web of bribes, threats, and blood-soaked secrets that stretched from the Caribbean to the halls of global power. Jeffrey Epstein's reign depended on one currency: leverage. But when coercion failed, cash filled the gaps. In the U.S. Virgin Islands, where Epstein's island was located, local officials received lavish payouts to ignore his crimes. A 2020 lawsuit filed by the Virgin Islands Department of Justice revealed Epstein had funneled over $180,000 to then Lieutenant Governor Oscar Potter, alongside donations to senators and police chiefs. He treated the government like a concierge service, a former investigator told the Miami Herald. Law enforcement, too, was compromised. In 2005, Palm Beach Police Detective Joseph Recarey built a rock-solid case against Epstein for trafficking minors, only to watch prosecutors downgrade charges to a single misdemeanor. Emails later uncovered by the Washington Post showed Epstein's lawyers, including future Trump impeachment attorney Ken Starr, pressuring officials to soften the case. They called it the billionaire's discount, Recarey said. Epstein's media manipulation was equally calculated. In 2018, Daily News journalist Sharon Churcher was tipped off about Epstein's crimes. Before she could publish, her source vanished, and her editor killed the story. "I was told, this isn't worth your career," Churcher recalled in a 2021 podcast. Those who threatened Epstein's empire often met grisly fates. In 2019, French modeling scout Jean-Luc Brunel, a key Epstein accomplice accused of trafficking girls, was found hanged in a Paris jail cell hours before he was to testify. Authorities ruled it suicide, but the cell's CCTV had malfunctioned. "A man who loved life doesn't suddenly hang himself," Brunel's lawyer told Le Parisien. Other deaths defy coincidence. Stephen Hoffenberg, Epstein's former business partner, narrowly survived a 2020 hit-and-run after vowing to expose Epstein's blackmail network. John Mark Dugan, a former Palm Beach deputy, fled to Russia in 2016 after leaking evidence of police corruption tied to Epstein. "They'll kill me if I go back," he told The Guardian. Joshua Kay, a former Epstein security guard, died in a 2022 car crash, days after contacting the FBI about tapes of politicians. Most chilling is the case of Erica Keller, a whistleblower who in 2017 leaked flight logs to the New York Times. Weeks later, Keller's car veered off a Colorado highway. The coroner found traces of succinylcholine, a paralytic in her system, a drug used in assassinations. Her laptop, containing a backup of the logs, was never recovered. Epstein's impunity was enforced by a cabal of power brokers. His legal team included Harvard professor Alan Dershowitz, who brokered his 2008 plea deal, and Ken Starr, whose connections stifled investigations. "We don't target the wealthy. It's bad for business," a former SDNY prosecutor admitted anonymously to Vanity Fair. But Epstein's true armor was his intelligence ties. Ghislaine Maxwell, his alleged madam, was the daughter of Mossad-linked media mogul Robert Maxwell. Epstein was a gatherer of compromat. Former Mossad agent Ari Ben-Menash told The Guardian. He had help from people who knew how to bury secrets. This network extended to academia. Epstein donated millions to MIT's Media Lab and Harvard's program for evolutionary dynamics, institutions that later scrubbed his name from records. The money was hush payments, a Harvard researcher told the Wall Street Journal. "We all knew." In January 2021, a bombshell dossier surfaced on the dark web, titled Epstein's Guest Registry. It purportedly listed visits by a G7 head of state, a Middle Eastern crown prince, and a Supreme Court justice. Mainstream media ignored it until a verified excerpt appeared in the Telegraph, citing a 2014 trip by Emmanuel Macron, then France's economy minister. Within hours, the article vanished. The Telegraph cited factual inaccuracies, but insiders hinted at darker forces. "We got a call from someone high up in French intelligence," a staffer told Newsweek. "They said, retract it, or we'll bankrupt you." The dossier's author, a cybersecurity expert named Lena Petrova, fled to Iceland after her Berlin apartment was firebombed. "They're rewriting history," she told Der Spiegel from hiding. "But the names are real, and they're terrified." Days after Petrova's disappearance, a cryptic video surfaced on Telegram. Shot in night vision, it showed a figure in a hazmat suit shredding documents in a vault. The caption, "Burn it all." The list is everywhere now. Forensic analysts traced the video's metadata to a server in Epstein's former Manhattan mansion. But when the FBI raided the building, they found only ashes and a single, unburned page listing coordinates in the Caribbean Sea. As the FBI closed in, flames engulf Little St. James. Key buildings collapse, hard drives melt, and a yacht sinks with its cargo. But in Epstein's prison cell, a guard hears whispers. He's not dead. They took him. Who escaped the island that night? And why does a submarine's ghostly silhouette haunt the coast? Chapter 6. The Night It All Burned. The air over Little St. James Island crackled with tension on July 6, 2019, as FBI agents descended upon Jeffrey Epstein's Caribbean fortress. What they found was not a trove of secrets, but a smoldering labyrinth of deliberate destruction, a crime scene scrubbed clean by unseen hands. The night it all burned marked not an end, but a chilling new chapter in a saga of power, corruption, and whispers of escape. When federal agents stormed the island at dawn, Armed with warrants and body cameras, they expected to seize evidence. Instead, they found bulldozers still warm from use and the acrid stench of burning plastic. The temple, Epstein's gold-domed sanctum of horrors, had been reduced to rubble. Satellite imagery later revealed the demolition began hours after Epstein's arrest in New Jersey, as if triggered by an invisible kill switch. It was like someone had tipped them off. An FBI agent told the Miami Herald under anonymity. The main villa security room was torched. We pulled melted CCTV servers from the ashes. Local contractors confessed to receiving frantic calls days earlier, offering triple pay for emergency demolition. One worker, his voice shaking in a 2021 Vanity Fair interview, recalled a warning. The boss said if we talked, our families would drown. The FBI's evidence logs from the raid read like a thriller's plot holes. Hard drives in Epstein's underground vault, drilled through and soaked in salt water. Guest logs fed into industrial shredders, their confetti-like remnants found in trash bags weighted with cinder blocks. Epstein's 72-foot yacht, the Lady Ghislaine, vanished from its dock. Days later, Coast Guard divers found it scuttled 200 feet deep near Great St. James Island, its hull split open like a gutted fish. Forensic analysts recovered waterlogged documents in the yacht's safe, including encrypted flight logs and a folder labeled VIP preferences. The ink was blurred, but we could make out initials: HRH BC KS, a Justice Department source revealed to Newsweek. The file's contents remain classified, sealed under national security concerns. On August 10, 2019, Epstein was found dead in his Manhattan jail cell, naked and coiled with a bedsheet. Officials ruled it suicide, but the scene defied logic. Surveillance cameras outside his cell malfunctioned for 8 critical hours. Guards Tova Noel and Michael Thomas admitted to the New York Times they'd been online shopping for motorcycles instead of checking inmates. Autopsy photos, leaked to the Washington Post, showed fractures in Epstein's hyoid bone, an injury more common in strangulation than hanging. But the most damning testimony came from a rookie guard who broke ranks in 2023. 2 guys in suits visited him the night before, he told The Guardian, demanding anonymity. They had DOJ badges but no names. Epstein looked terrified. Next morning, he was gone. The guards' claims align with jail logs showing a 2:17 a.m. maintenance check by unregistered personnel. Hours before the FBI raid, St. Thomas fisherman Ronaldo Castillo spotted a 40-foot submersible gliding toward open ocean. It was black, no markings, he recounted to the Daily Beast. Looked military. Radar logs confirmed an unflagged vessel departing Epstein's dock at 3:33 a.m., a detail buried in the FBI's 1,200-page report. Speculation exploded in 2021 when hackers leaked Epstein's encrypted emails, including a 2018 message to an associate. If things go south, the sub can take 6 passengers to the rendezvous point. The coordinates led to a remote stretch of the mid-Atlantic ridge, where the seabed plunges 15,000 feet. Today, the island's ruins are patrolled by drones owned by Little St. James Ventures LLC, a shell company linked to Epstein's former lawyers. Yet locals swear the nightmare isn't over. In 2022, trespassers filmed shadowy figures loading crates onto a speedboat at midnight. The video, later scrubbed from YouTube, ended with a whisper, "He's alive." They all are. As the FBI's investigation stalls, one question haunts the Caribbean winds. Who escaped into the dark that night? And what price will the world pay for their secrets? Chapter 7. The Island's Curse. The ruins of Little St. James Island fester under the Caribbean sun like an open wound, its crumbling structures echoing with whispers of the dead and the damned. Though abandoned, the island is far from empty. Urban explorers, journalists, and conspiracy theorists who dare to trespass describe an oppressive dread, as if the sand itself remembers the horrors it absorbed. This chapter unspools the lingering mysteries of Epstein's infernal kingdom, where fact blurs with nightmare, and the past refuses to stay buried. Since Epstein's death, Little St. James has become a magnet for thrill seekers and ghost hunters. Those who evade the island's skeletal security detail, now staffed by shadowy contractors hired by the shell company Little St. James Ventures LLC, return with chilling tales. In 2021, YouTube Explorer's Dark Tourist Chronicles filmed a midnight excursion, capturing garbled voices in the jungle and shadowy figures darting through the ruins of the temple. We heard a woman sobbing near Epstein's grave, one member said in a since-deleted video. Then we found these. The camera panned to freshly cut white roses laid on Epstein's unmarked burial plot, their stems still damp. Local fishermen corroborate the eeriness. Boats stall near the dock, said Marlon James, a St. Thomas native, in a 2022 Vice interview. Engines die, like the island doesn't want you to leave. The mansion skeleton, its walls scorched and windows shattered, bears cryptic graffiti. They're watching and run. In 2023, urban explorer Liza Morales discovered a locked steel box in the rubble, stamped with Epstein's initials. Inside were Polaroids of grinning elites, their faces scratched out with knives. She turned them over to the FBI, but the case went cold. They told me to forget what I saw, Morales told the Daily Beast. Over 200 women have accused Epstein of abuse, yet dozens of victims remain missing. Among them, Maria, a 16-year-old from Belarus lured to the island in 2004, last seen in a leaked photo with a European diplomat. Sasha, a Russian orphan whose 2007 escape attempt was documented in Epstein's flight logs before her trail vanished. Flight manifests subpoenaed in Ghislaine Maxwell's trial reveal gaps. Entries redacted as VIP or security detail. One 2002 log lists a passenger only as Perseus, later linked by the Miami Herald to a codename used by CIA operatives. Private jet itineraries also tie to offshore shell companies. Southern Trust LLC ferried guests from Riyadh, Moscow, and Geneva, their identities buried in Cayman Islands paperwork. We'll never know how many girls were there, said Harvard legal scholar Alan Dershowitz, ironically entangled in Epstein's legal web, in a contentious 2020 CNN interview. The system protected the predators. Theories about the island's true purpose spiral into the grotesque and geopolitical blackmail nexus. Former Mossad agent Ari Ben-Menash insists Epstein was a Mossad asset, gathering compromat for Israel. The temple was a studio, he told The Guardian. Every tape was a bullet. Human trafficking hub. A 2021 UN report linked Epstein's pilots to flights carrying classified cargo for Riyadh-based conglomerates. Occult connections. Forensic architects studying temple blueprints noted its alignment with Orion's belt during summer solstices. Symbolism? Coincidence? Or ritual? Even the island's 2023 sale fuels speculation. Purchased by Little St. James Ventures LLC, a Delaware-registered entity tied to former Epstein lawyers. Permits filed in 2024 reveal plans for a private research facility. Locals fear a resurrection. They're rebuilding the dock, said a St. Thomas contractor in a Rolling Stone expose. Same blueprints, same tunnels. Sarah Ransom, who escaped Epstein's clutches in 2007, received death threats stamped with a winged serpent logo, the same symbol etched into Epstein's Manhattan townhouse. The island was just a node, Ransom warned in a 2023 BBC documentary. This isn't over. The same people, the same networks, they never stopped. They just evolved. Her words resonate globally. In January 2024, a Brussels-based trafficking ring was busted with client logs referencing the Caribbean Protocol. Investigators found a map of Little St. James pinned to their wall. As the world moves on, still waiting for the Epstein list to be made public, the island's curse seeps outward. Former staff vanish. Whistleblowers' homes burn. And in the dead of night, black helicopters descend on Little St. James, their rotors churning the same salty air that once carried screams.